So Michigan enters their week off 6-0, just the sixth time they've been 6-0 in the last 40 years. As we bring in Anthony Bellino, you see him every morning right here on BCSN on the X's and Bros show. And Anthony, thank you for joining us tonight.
Mark, always a pleasure, my friend. Always great to talk to you for a victory night, right? I'll take a victory evening with you, Mark, anytime.
Well, let's start here. Michigan, a week off. Is this coming at a good time or a bad time for the Wolverines coming off that win at Nebraska?
Oh, I like it a lot. I really do. I mean, if you talk to college coaches across the board, where the bye week is placed at is so pivotal for them because for a couple of reasons. One, health. I mean, missing Roman Wilson, that's a loss. So anytime you have an opportunity to give your guys a little bit of a break and not have to have a game, they will take that throughout the season. The question is where is it placed? I like the fact that it's smack dab in the middle of the season. You know, you went to the first 6 weeks of the season taking care of business. The season has had its ups, it's had its downs, but you're 6-0 and you can't really complain too much about that. Now you can take a moment to kind of reassess where you're at. I think we know what Michigan's identity is. I think the team keeps improving in different areas week by week, and now they can look ahead to the second half of the season, which is going to present a whirlwind of challenges.
A lot more ups than downs thus far for the Michigan Wolverines, but that's almost a microcosm of what happened in Lincoln as they started off a little bit slow, had the lead, and then for the first time this season, Michigan trailed. We saw a little adversity. We saw them come back and really answered late in that game to pull out the victory thanks to a key turnover and Jake Moody hitting a field goal.
You know, I really think what Cade McNamara said after the ball game was very important. And what he said was, look, you know, just being honest here, no disrespect to anybody, because you have to say that right before you disrespect somebody, right? But he said that other Michigan teams might have lost that football game. And I thought that that was very important. You know, this team, you know, they were up, 19-14, and then all of a sudden it was 22-19. Michigan answered right back. Here comes Nebraska answering right back. And the Michigan got that field goal to go up 20, to tie it at 29s, and then another field goal late in order to win it after the fumble, like you mentioned. And I don't know if the same Michigan teams that we've seen in the past have necessarily had that resolve when, hey, push comes to shove, backs are against the wall, things aren't going your way. You know, Nebraska went through a run where they went touchdown, touchdown, touchdown in 3 consecutive drives. Defense got torn up a little bit there. It was a 22-6 third quarter, I believe. So it was not a great quarter by any stretch of the imagination. I thought Nebraska came out of the gates, really ripping and roaring. I thought that Michigan really responded to that very well, despite some of the I like the term intent to deceive, some of the tactics being deployed defensively from Nebraska. You know, Cade McNamara's interception that he threw, he hadn't thrown one all year. What was he going to look like after throwing a pick? Well, the player was clearly offside. You know, you had Nebraska trying to mimic the snap count, clapping, and trying to draw Michigan players off sides and baited them a couple of times, whether you call it gamesmanship or whatever you call it. It happened and it wasn't really called. So Michigan being able to fight through a lot of that. I love the fact that when Nebraska turned the lights down and they were playing Thunderstruck, the Michigan bench, they were up much like they were against Wisconsin, you know, trying to take that energy from Nebraska like they took it from Wisconsin and I guess employ that and deliver that into their own team. I like the attitude that this team has. I still have my concerns offensively, but so far so good, I think.
You brought up Cade McNamara, obviously his first interception. It's highly unlikely he was going to go the entire season without throwing a pick. So he gets that out of the way, and I think the important thing is the way he responded, the way the offense responded, where they didn't let that get them down. They were able to come back, and that's the most important thing, was seeing how Cade would respond to that little bit of adversity.
Oh, 100%. You wanted to see, but he still come out there with that same confidence. And another game where, you know, he threw the ball a lot. He was 22 of 38, and we didn't see him throw 38 passes in like the first 4 weeks of the season. So the last couple of games, they've asked him to do more, and I think that he's handled it really well. And I think it goes back to the early parts of the season when they were still working on their passing game. Now, no Ronnie Bell. Obviously, he's been out the entire year. But you lose a guy like Roman Wilson. And so now every single one of these practices that they have had in between the kickoff of week 1 and now completing the game of week 6 and going into this bye week has been working on the passing game, working on the timing, getting familiar, building that trust with your receivers and your tight ends that is so vitally important. I mean, Hassan Haskins and Blake Corum went for 123 yards and 89 yards on the ground, and between them had 34 carries. That's astounding. If you can do that, they're going to win. If you go over 200 yards on the ground between your main two backs like that, you are going to have a ton of success. And they fed them the ball a lot. They did a good job of keeping possession of the ball and mixing in the pass, because you have Blake and Hassan. I'm like gushing over here. Those guys have 34 combined attempts, and Cade has 38 passing attempts. If you want to talk about balance, that's the balance right there. And no running back that Nebraska had faced had as many yards as Blake Corum or Hassan Haskins had against them. They both did it in the same game. They accumulated 3 touchdowns between the two of them. Like, all in all, really good performance by this offense, really good response from Cade McNamara and this entire Michigan Wolverines team.
And as you pointed out, we're talking about a very good Nebraska defense against the run, and Michigan is able to get the job done there. Now, I know north of the border there is a healthy debate going on right now about who is doing the better job of coaching. Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, Mel Tucker at Michigan State. What's your take on that one?
Did you say the word healthy? I mean, I can think of a lot of words right now, Mark, where people are discussing this. Healthy isn't necessarily the first word that came to my mind. These people are crazy, Mark. That's what it is. Look, we're going to find out in a couple of weeks on October 30th, little spooky, scary skeletons there in East Lansing. We're going to find out exactly who the better team is. We just really hope that both teams make it there undefeated with that much on the line. I think that what Jim Harbaugh has done is kind of what the expectation is. I know a lot of people talked about, would this team go 8-4? Would they go 7-5? There was a lot of concern over Washington and what about Wisconsin? And they've passed every test up until this point, which is great. As for Michigan State, when you look back to last year's 2-win season, one of which coming at the Big House against Michigan 27-24 in the Rocky Lombardi game, we remember that. You look at Mel Tucker starting off behind the 8 ball, coming in for Mark D'Antonio. He had no spring ball. The summer was canceled because of COVID. They didn't know if you were going to have a season. They had like 3.5, maybe 4 weeks before the first game that they could actually have their first padded practice. They go into the offseason, and it is an absolute turnstile. You got people coming and going left and right like a bus stop, right? Here come 10 transfers in, there go 10 guys out. And Mel Tucker trying to build this team. He adds a guy in Kenneth Walker who is a legitimate Heisman Trophy candidate. You can't take it away. He had a run last week that is something, a 94-yard scamper, that is something you put on a Heisman Trophy reel. It was that good. He is that good. He is making up for a lot of the, I don't know, I wouldn't say ineptitude, but I would say maybe the lack of efficiency that offensive line at Michigan State has had thus far, because his yards after contact are incredible. Canine, as they like to call him there, Kenneth Walker III, he's the real deal, and he is going to be a whole heck of a problem to try to tackle all throughout that football game here in a couple of weeks. But I really like what Mel Tucker's done. I think what Jim Harbaugh's done at 6-0. You mentioned the stat to begin this segment here. It hasn't happened a whole bunch, not nearly as much as people would like to think, that they've made it to 6-0 over the last 20, 25, 30 years or whatever. But for Mel Tucker and the Michigan State Spartans, I think that he has far exceeded expectations. And I think that many people would lean towards, hey, Mel Tucker's probably done a better job considering it's year 2 versus Jim Harbaugh's year 7. But at the end of the day, I think both fan bases should just be really happy and hope they can both make it there undefeated.
Let's finish up with a little bit of a big picture discussion, as Michigan is ranked number 8, Michigan State is 9, Penn State 7, Ohio State 6, Iowa 2. The point is, 5 Big Ten teams in the top 10 of the AP poll, the first time that has ever happened. Is the Big Ten back, or are they going to cannibalize each other by the end of the season? We're just going to have one Big Ten team standing in the college football playoff.
Iowa should not be it. I know they're number 2 in the AP poll, and I know that they won, and I realize this is a results-based business. But when Penn State's varsity quarterback went down in that football game on Saturday, you saw the steep decline in play, right? I mean, Penn State was beating the brakes off of Iowa in that first half. Iowa's got a good defense. Penn State was able to score on them. Iowa does not have a very good offense. And when you look at some of the elite teams in college football, if you played, put Iowa against Georgia or Iowa against Oklahoma, they will not be able to keep up offensively. I don't care how good your defense is. In college football, it's about athletes. It's about offense. You have to be able to put points on the board. Iowa just simply cannot do it. And the rest of their scheduling, Iowa should finish. If they do not finish undefeated, Mark, that is a huge failure, because they made the biggest test. The biggest test of their season was on Saturday against Penn State. The rest of their schedule, it should be a cakewalk for them. Michigan State, Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State, all in the East Division. They're going to cannibalize each other, is exactly what's going to happen. These teams are going to beat the snot out of each other. Somebody's going to be walking out with some losses. So I do believe that the Big Ten is probably outside of Iowa. I would not have them at number 2. I don't believe they're the second best team in the country. They're probably somewhere in that 7-14 range, more than likely. But I also do believe that this is the most challenging year the AP Top 25 has ever had, at least in my 33 years of existence here on planet Earth. There has never been a year where we have seen so much chaos considering the current college football playoff format. I mean, it's madness out there, and it really is survive and advance each week. When you have a team like Cincinnati at number 3, that should open up everybody's eyes that anything is possible this season. I like where the Big Ten is at. I like the fact that they're very well represented. I do think that they're one of the better conferences in college football. I just so happen to believe that the 4 best teams in the conference all play in the same division. That's in the East.
Yeah, I think it's something like the first time since like 2014 where neither Alabama, Clemson, or Ohio State are ranked in the top 4. That just tells you a little about the chaos we have seen so far. Well, we want to thank Anthony Bellino. You see him every morning right here on BCSN at the X's and Bros show. Anthony, enjoy the Saturday off with Michigan, having the week off before they take on at Northwestern in 2 weeks.
Thank you very much, my friend. Always appreciate the time.